Hi, I'm Greg Lehman, and today we'll be touring my cob and straw bale house in Goshen, Indiana. The style of this house was inspired by cottages in the southwest of England, in the county of Devon, where there are thousands of cob cottages that were built hundreds of years ago, some of them, and still standing and lived in today. I have done quite a bit of traveling, and while I was doing a walking tour around Devon, I was inspired by how these cottages looked, and that gave me the basis of the style which I built this house in. So in 1999, I went to a 3-week-long complete natural building course, which Yanto taught in outside Telluride, Colorado, and that was my basic education in cob. Along with that, I have also taken over the course of the years many other workshops at different schools. The form of this house is a 3-aisled hall house, which is a vernacular Northern European building form in which the center of the house acts like the same function of like a courtyard. In a different kind of a climate, you might have a courtyard, and of course in the north you want to keep an enclosed space, and so the particular niches are off to the sides. Also, I've based the proportions of this house on the golden section and the square, so almost every proportion, whether it be how the beams are cut, like the width versus depth of the beams, the ceiling heights, the width of each space, the size of the niches, how they relate to each other, is all based on the golden section. The window shapes are either squares or golden sections. And so that repeating a pattern over and over within your project can make it be visually more cohesive. This site here is actually in an area, we're in the city limits, which is atypical for a natural building. A lot of them around the country. We're in the city limits of Goshen, Indiana. So this house has to follow all the building codes. And we are zoned R2, which means it's allowed to build a duplex here. So part of my ability to build the house was the idea I would build it as a duplex. So the lower level has a complete separate entrance, separate utilities, separate address number, and by having that as a rental, it's allowed me to defray the cost of the building process. So this house is part of a in-process community, which is in a 2-acre site in the city limits of Goshen, Indiana, and it is essentially a pocket neighborhood. An architect, Ross Chapin, has written a book on pocket neighborhoods, which the idea is that rather than your houses all lined up along a street and everybody not knowing their neighbors, is that the houses are built as a cluster and everybody's front porch faces inward. So you have a sense of community. You might have a community garden or a town square in the center. On our 2-acre site, we have currently this house, which is straw bale and cob, which I built from 2001 to 2006. Next door is a manufactured house from the 80s, which was the original house on site that's rented out. And then we built a duplex, which is conventionally framed but super insulated on the site as well. And then I have a new cob hybrid house, which I started in 2016. I've been very slowly building. In today's tour, we'll be focusing on my first house, which I built, was a straw bale and cob hybrid, which I currently live in. And also there's a new house on site, which is a cob and conventionally framed hybrid. We'll be seeing that house as well. To build this house, my original construction drawings were fairly idealistic and purist as far as building materials. As it turned out, I had to hire a structural engineer because I have a post and beam frame that's bolted together out of logs, and so they drew up a concrete footer with rebar. So we have a conventional footer, and then above grade is fieldstone from local farms, which comes up about 18 inches to protect the straw bale and cob walls from moisture. And the house has a load-bearing post and beam frame, which is bolted together with 1/2-inch lag bolts. The frame is built from wood mill at a local sawmill, plus the vertical elements and some of the horizontal beams are actually round tree trunks, which are either from this site or within 15 miles of this site. After we got the basic frame of the structure up, then in 2001, September 2001, I hosted a cob workshop taught by Yanto Evans of Cob Cottage Company. We had 15 participants who came to the backyard and helped get the cob wall going, and we got, I'd say, half or more of the cob wall done within that week. After the Cob workshop was finished, I continued working in the fall, and then for the winter tarped the house off and worked another job for a few months. In the spring then, moved into the house, kind of camped out for a summer while we were still building the next season the straw bale wall. And then the walls then after that got clay straw plastered. It's a base coat, and then lime sand plastered as a second coat. After finishing the lime plaster on the outside walls, then we put cedar shingles on the roof, and then finished the interior of the house. So here we are at the outside of the house. On the backyard side, the lower level of the house is a separate unit. It's an up-down duplex. You can see one row of windows along the bottom. That's where the rental unit is, and I live on the upstairs currently with my wife. This whole wall of the house is built out of cob. It's between 18 and 24 inches thick, depending on whether you're at the bottom of the wall or the top of the wall. This is the south end of the house with the big windows facing south upstairs, and then also you can see the lower entrance of the house of the second unit is on the lower level underneath the porch. This side of the house has the main entrance to the upstairs level, and you'll notice the eyebrow windows over the windows and the door itself. Those are a typical feature you would see in an English cottage with a thatched roof. This is a cedar shake roof, but it evokes some of the same similar curves. This side of the house, which is facing east, and also the north side of the house are all straw bale, which gives us a higher insulation value in some of these walls that have fewer windows. So now let's go take a look inside the house. This is the main room of the house, the living room. It has a cathedral ceiling, which is about 19 feet tall. The vertical elements are tree trunks that were gathered locally, and then there's some rough sawn structure above that, filling out the frame. We have about 90 square feet of glass facing south, which gives us some light in the wintertime as far as solar gain. Underneath the windows, there is a straw bale bench that's sculpted with cob on top of that, and it actually has some radiant heat tubes in it, so it could be heated. One of the things I really enjoyed about building with cob was the ability to sculpt it into any shape that you want to do. And here we have a stained glass window, which is in the shape of a catenary arch. The stained glass window is something I built at a workshop at the Yestermore Design Build School in Vermont. Next, we'll take a look at the dining area, which is also a niche off of the main room. This niche does curve outwards of the wall to give you a little bit more space and have a more round, focused area in which to put a table for conversation. It also has a small stained glass window and some other windows that look outside into the woods. One thing we discovered after building the house was that the cob wall was cold to the touch in the winter versus the straw bale wall, which was warm. Cob has a very low insulation value due to its high density, so it really isn't an appropriate material for northern Indiana climate. So in the new house, the new Cob House, which we'll look at next, we did a cavity wall with insulation in the middle of the wall, similar to you would have in any other conventional masonry building. Cob is a mixture of sand, straw, and clay. In a traditional cob house, the cob would be a structural wall and would hold up the roof. In this particular house, the post and beam structure is what does all the work of holding the roof up, and the cob is an infill section. There's a wood stove in the center of the house. It was an old wood stove that I got from a friend for I think $100, and we heated with that for several years. We do have gas heat backup as well. Upstairs in the loft area there's a bedroom, so let's go take a look at that next. And this is the main bedroom of the house. It's upstairs in the loft. It continues the same architectural details as the rest of the house. This room does have exposed cherry beams in the ceiling, and the walls are built out of cherry, as are the doors and all of the trim. So now taking a look at the kitchen, this is one of the cob walls on the inside. There's a niche in the cob wall, which is one nice thing about cob is you can make little shelves or niches on the inside of your walls. We did a concrete countertop with a gray dye for the countertops, and then we are actually in the city limits. We are on city water and sewer and gas and electric. Now this part of the kitchen, we have also the washer and dryer because we don't have a basement, given that we have rented that lower level out, and we have maple butcher block counters along with concrete on the side as well. So next to the kitchen we have the other bedroom in the house, which is on the main floor, and coming through this way we head to the bathroom. There is one inclusive bathroom which has the shower and everything is all in one space, which keeps the footprint very small, and it's also a barrier-free bathroom. You can see some of the round framing elements in that bathroom as well. Now let's take a look at the new Cob House, which is part of the same property, just down the brick driveway. This is the Cob House that I started in 2016, have been working on gradually. Now we're on to the finishing steps. It's part cob, and the south and west ends of the wall are actually conventionally framed. This house maintains the same theme of English cottage style with some local fieldstone at the base and the cob wall with the lime plaster on the walls. This house has a slate roof and granite front steps, which are something that would be a more permanent building material and last a lot longer than the wood of the other house. The spatial layout of this house is very similar to the other house in that we have tree trunks framing a cathedral ceiling living room with niches along the sides, and we have a bedroom loft up as well. In this house, I'm focusing on refining the details of the framing and also making the sculpted cob details more precise and delicate. A unique feature of this house is this south-facing wall, which is black metal flashing, which will be the base layer of a solar collection, which will heat water tubes and which will drain back into a tank in the ground and then be pumped into the floor of the house to heat the house. Building these houses over the last number of years has led to some positive relationships with friends and community coming together to help, and my parents have helped a lot with the projects as well. My wife and I really enjoyed living in this house, the Strawberry and Cob House, for the last 15 years. Building with natural materials, specifically the masonry aspects, the fieldstone, the cob, the plasters, all of those things to me are something I'm very passionate about. It's not about making money or trying to develop real estate. It's about creating beautiful places that can be used by myself or other people in the future. If you're interested in learning more about designing your own home or building with natural materials, there's lots of books out there. Two of the books regarding design of houses and design philosophy are A Pattern Language by Christopher Alexander and How Buildings Learn by Stuart Brand. A good resource for learning how to build the cob is The Hand Sculpted House by Yanto Evans, Michael Smith, and Linda Smiley. It shows the basics of cob construction and details. Another book that's really good with earthen construction is called Earth Construction, A Comprehensive Guide by Hugo Hoban and Hubert Juilliard. This book has a more of an internationalist focus of traditional earth buildings in other continents, Africa, Europe, and different places around the world, and more technical details. If you're interested in more information about these houses, I have a website, GregoryLehman.com, which has more detailed information on the construction techniques and also some other projects I've done over the years.